Hello, everyone. Today we are here with Dirk Lueth, co-founder of Upland. Upland markets itself as a metaverse of sorts where you are able to buy, sell, and trade virtual properties in the Upland world. So the focus of conversation today is going to be about two topics that even as someone who's been in the game industry for the past 10 years, I just don't really understand that very well. And that is first, blockchain applied to gaming, and two, what is the metaverse? But first, welcome, Dirk.
Yeah, hi, Joe. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Great. So I thought we could start with kind of blockchain basics. So I'm going to mention a number of terms and just pretend I don't really understand these terms very well. And if you can explain them to our audience, that would be great because I actually don't understand these terms that well. But I thought we could first start with essentially like Bitcoin versus Ethereum. When people think about these two currencies, could you explain what they are and what the primary difference between those two are?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bitcoin was, let's say, the first, cryptocurrency, which was launched a little bit more than 10 years ago now by someone who nobody knows who or she or this group is, called Satoshi Nakamoto. And the basic idea is a store of value where you can exchange, you can use Bitcoins to pay for things, even though when I say store of value, it's probably better to just, to save it and to put it back and, for later purposes. Ethereum was then developed some years later and under the leadership of Vitalik Buterin. And this is also based on so-called blockchain technology, very much like Bitcoin, which has invented, in a certain sense, this blockchain technology. And Ethereum has one advantage. It has a different aspect. It's actually a programmable blockchain. That means you can actually put apps on top of it, and that makes it different because Bitcoin is basically just a currency, while Ethereum allows you to put apps on top of it. However, Ethereum also has its own currency called Ether, which are traded also on exchanges.
Great. And then what about blockchain itself? Can you explain in a simple way what blockchain is?
Yeah, blockchain is a distributed ledger where actually you see transactions which are publicly recorded. You can always look at them up. And when I always try to explain the famous, to explain it to your mother type of thing, what is blockchain? You just picture it that you have 8 people who don't know each other sitting around one table, and each one of them has, let's say, a $10 bill in front of them. And so person A now says, I'm going to give now person B this $10 bill. So all the other people can see it and can verify it. Yes, person A gave it to person B. And that's very much how blockchain works. And, you can always see it and it's secure and lots of other things. But this is a not very easy explanation of the idea of blockchain.
Okay. And then when people talk about social tokens, what is meant by a social token?
Yeah, this is actually quite new, and social tokens could be relevant for you, Joe, because it's actually for creators and for communities. So the basic idea is that you as a person, when it's for an individual, you do what is called maybe a token sale about yourself. You issue maybe the Joe token, right? And then everyone who purchases that Joe token then will actually have access to certain things you promise to them. So one could be, for instance, you give them access maybe to a one-on-one call, right? Maybe when they have a certain amount of tokens, you have a one-on-one call. You can, only those who hold this token can have that. Or you can promise maybe give them, some future revenues. You tell them, okay, the future, I'm going to share 10% of my revenues with all the token holders. So that's possible. When you speak of a community token, which is also kind of a social token, is where people will get access maybe to a Discord group, right, if they hold the token. And there's a lot of other things. It's very much like at the intersection of loyalty, token, and so on. So that's the basic idea of a social token.
Right. And then NFT.
So NFT stands for non-fungible tokens. So we were mentioning earlier Bitcoin or Ethers. These are all tokens which are all, let's say, exchangeable, very much like a $1 note. When I give you the $1 note, the next dollar note exactly looks the same, so you cannot tell the difference. NFT is the non-fungible token is really when it's unique. Take a drawing in the real life, so it's only one piece exists associated with that particular token.
Okay, and almost done here. So second to last is DeFi.
Yeah, DeFi stands for decentralized finance, and this is quite hip in the whole, let's say, crypto industry right now, is where I own some virtual or some digital assets and I put them somewhere, just as one example, in order to maybe collect some interest. So I stake my tokens somewhere, and because I stake them, those people who did receive them, they can do other things with those tokens, and I get some kind of an interest back. So that's what it is. But there's much more to decentralized finance. Finance as an industry in general is, of course, a very broad space.
Got it. And the final term, just in terms of mining, what does it mean to mine, whether it's Bitcoin or some of these tokens?
Yeah, mining is basically the process to verify, and I don't want to go too technical here, blocks on the blockchain. And you have a lot of mining companies who have computers, and they actually take a look and they verify it. They do some mathematical puzzles and so on. And they do that because for the work they do, they actually mine Bitcoins. And that's the basic idea of mining.
And so just generally speaking, when we think about what the problems, so can you talk about what problems is blockchain solving, which wasn't possible before?
So as I mentioned earlier with my example, when people sit around the table and everyone can see what the others have been doing, and that's one of the main benefits now, is that it's transparent. I can see, I don't know that really is Joe's doing this transaction, but I can see an abstract address. I know this, I can verify that this transaction has really happened. So transparency is a very, very important asset. And I can exchange then also value between different stakeholders. So that is very important. And one thing is also, blockchain is a ledger, or let's say a database technology. When I'm a gaming company, before as a gaming operator, I could always change a database entry and whatever I want to do. However, with blockchain, it's immutable. That means it cannot be changed anymore. And this creates another level of trust for players, because they know, okay, this transaction cannot be reversed by anyone who says arbitrarily, I don't want this to happen.
And so when we think about these capabilities that you just described and think about gaming, in your opinion, what are like the potential applications of whether it's crypto, NFT, blockchain, or to your point, you said that social tokens may be something that's more applicable to me, but could you speak about what are the current key applications, or what are some of the applications that you're most excited about in the future?
So it started out, of course, being a currency. Then you have the whole DeFi, but now it comes, and then it's already big in gaming, because gaming obviously always was dealing with digital goods and exchange of goods. Now you're adding this whole component that you can exchange of value. And what is completely new with blockchain, and this is what was not possible in that way before, that players will be able not just to extract, let's say, entertainment value out of a game. They are also able now to extract monetary value, and this is what gives now completely new use cases, also especially for games.
Okay, and are there any in particular, like if you think about current applications of blockchain to games, are there any popular applications of blockchain today?
So where blockchain is very strong these days is especially in, let's say, collectibles. So where people in the digital art space. So you have a lot of websites that are called So Rare or Rareable, who are offering artists to upload digital art, and they can sell that as an NFT to people who are interested in that art. And there are several reasons why people buy that. Some people just like the art, the way it looks. Others say, it's maybe some kind of speculation circulation, hopefully increases in value, and all these kind of things. But the big advantage in that case is because when you compare it to the real world art, when you have let's say a Picasso somewhere and you purchase it, first of all you have to go there to the place in physical location and then maybe participate in an auction. Then once you maybe bought it, then you have to take it with you to transport it in a plane. Well, Picasso drawing itself will be difficult to transport, but it's way more difficult. And that's why people say, especially in the digital art space, there's a huge potential because it's so much easier to exchange between different stakeholders. And then the other component is the collectibles. What you see currently is that, there's one example is what is right now is quite big is NBA Top Shots, where people can purchase some unique, videos which are secured on the blockchains. So there's other possible applications which makes it really, really compelling use case for blockchain.
In terms of whether you think about the key risks or the current impediments to wider spread adoption, what do you think those are? Why haven't we seen greater adoption of blockchain in games or in other applications to date?
Yeah, even though blockchain gives you this new benefit, meaning you can extract monetary value, but the way you can extract it is still quite complicated. So when you want to purchase something on blockchain or in a blockchain game, normally, I come later to Upland because we do it differently, you have to set up a wallet. So that in itself is a complicated process. So you need to understand what the private key is. You need to handle so-called passphrases. And this makes it super difficult, let's say, for the average player to get into this whole world. And that's why you really need to obfuscate this complicated aspects and find other ways what people are known, what people are using every day, and in order to attract and then to achieve mass adoption.
So just to kind of dig a little bit deeper into that. So is it primarily the interface in which you're kind of, whether it's, let's say I'm purchasing a collectible, and the way in which you actually interface to get your collectibles, is that the main problem? Or could you expound a little bit more in terms of the specific problem you're seeing?
Yeah, that's a problem. I'll give you one example. Is so when you want to purchase something on Ethereum, there's an application called Metamask. So first of all, when you cannot just go there and enter your credit card or whatever. What you need to do is you need to first download the Metamask. Then you need to install those private keys and passphrases. And you need to do. This is what is really complicated. And people are scared also. Let's imagine you purchase something and some of the digital art has been sold for
Right.
hundred thousands of dollars already.
Yeah.
And when you lose your private key, when you lose your passphrase, this is gone, right? This is really scary for a lot of people, right? I mean, people don't care probably when they lose something for $5. Some, of course, do, right? But if it gets to higher amounts, and then then someone steals your private key or so, or when you write it down somewhere on a paper and someone finds that paper, then it's gone. You don't have any protection, and that's what is a really big barrier for people to enter. Of course, then they see all the fluctuations, and it's now in the mainstream media that price of Bitcoin going up and down. Right now it's going all the way up, but you never know if it goes down completely again. And that also is another reason why people who are a little bit more risk averse are not yet entering that whole space.
So maybe we could talk a little bit more about Upland specifically then, in terms of, could you tell us more about what Upland is and then how you're integrating blockchain?
Yeah, absolutely. So Upland is, so we got inspired by the board game Monopoly. So everyone knows what that is, has played it when they were young. And that was Upland is basically. Upland is what we call a metaverse. And we come to later a little bit what that is, a metaverse, but it's based on actual addresses. So we're currently live for the cities of Fresno, interestingly, that's come to that a little bit later, but New York and San Francisco, where you can purchase a property which is when you have when you zoom into Upland, it's very much like a map application. You zoom in, you see the property borders, and you can purchase, let's say, 234 Post Street in San Francisco. It's very simple. Once you purchase that property, and it's just a parcel, you start earning income on it. We call that yield, and it's Apex, which is our in-app currency. So that's a very simplistic way of getting into Upland. But basically, Upland is based on 3 pillars: play, earn, and connect. So the first one is play. That means once you purchase the property, we have you can complete collections. That means you can collect properties which have the same characteristic, let's say the same properties on the same street, or maybe 3 museums and so on. And the more rare a property characteristic is, of course, the harder it is to get them. But then also your yield on those properties increases, because when you complete a collection, you get a one-time boost, and again, when it's more rare, you get a even higher 2 or 3-time boost. So that's part of the play. Another part of the play component is that we have treasure hunts, we have scavenger hunts, we have live events in the app. So it's always something going on, and it's a lot of fun. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is now what we're currently launching is called Earn. And this is what is also so new about blockchain, is that people will be able to develop their properties. They can put buildings on it, or decor and other things, very much what you have maybe on Sims and other places. And eventually people will be able to operate a business on their property in their building. So what kind of businesses are there? I just mentioned decor. So maybe you want to run a virtual decor shop. And that's also very much a big differentiator what Upland is compared to let's say, more traditional games. That means the players will be running that decor shop and selling maybe a fence, saying a virtual fountain or something, to other players. And it's not us, Upland, the operators. And they can sell those assets for either our in-app currency, Apex, or, and I'll come to that in a second, also, or for US dollars. But this earn component can also have other ideas. So for instance, maybe you render services to someone. Maybe someone has a shop and he needs someone who sells actually the goods. So you can actually go and start earning some money. So that is quite important. Then we have also what we are launching is called NFT galleries. So what we mentioned, these digital art. So you will be able to import art from other blockchains into Upland and then run an NFT gallery and sell digital art to other players. So that's also one type of business. Virtual car dealerships and all these kind of things which will launch. And then the third component after play earn is connect. You see that also on top here. So that means people can go and meet in virtual settings, like a virtual coffee shop and virtual universities or virtual sports arenas, and they can meet there, chat with each other, maybe exchange some digital goods and so on. So that's what Upland is. And Upland is available right now on iOS, Android, on the web. And as I mentioned, we have also capabilities, and that's a big differentiator for users to actually sell the digital goods for US dollars.
Got it. And so just to dive a little bit more deeply so I fully understand what Upland is. So let's take that first piece. So it sounds like you're saying that you've got specific cities and the Upland properties within the Upland virtual world. Does that map one-to-one with the actual physical real world in terms of the property?
Yes.
But the house itself could be different. Is that right? Where you would be building your own house and you can it's like the parcel of land is what you would be investing in. And then you can build whatever you want on top of that. Is that how that part works?
Yes, this is true. Yeah. So okay. You basically just, when I said you have this map application, you zoom in and you see the parcel and you have the real world borders, property borders. We're partnering there with a third party company who provides us this kind of borders. And then you can start putting something on there what you want, because our slogan is also rebuild the world. That means maybe today there's a skyscraper in the real world, but maybe you put a small townhouse on it. So that's possible, and you can run maybe in the real real world, there's a, let's say, a car dealership, but you decide to run a coffee shop there, right? So this is all possible what you can do. However, we expect that people who own a shop in real life, that, you know, this will somehow merge. So when I own this coffee shop in real life, maybe I have an incentive to also own the virtual version, because now I can maybe get people, you know, come there, you know, once in a while, you know, just not virtually, but also in the physical world, and do things. So it's going to be quite funny, quite fun to see how people will blur those kind of things. The only exception when we say it can be put anything what you want on top of that parcel is when we speak about landmarks. But we said, okay, we still, of course, once you have the map, which looks, of course, like San Francisco or New York, but what we also want is that, you know, let's say these important landmarks like you know, Statue of Liberty, you know, you have maybe, you know, the Trump Tower, which we sold, the New York Stock Exchange. So these are landmarks where we say, okay, those will look like in real life. So we will do 3 models which resemble the building in the real life.
Got it. And so you can also, you get some yield by owning these properties. You can actually build businesses in the virtual world. But then you also said you're supporting like a user-generated marketplace. So people within Upland can create items that can then be transacted, sold, and things of that nature. The other part was you're also creating a marketplace where you can sell art and other items from outside of Upland. So that's kind of interesting. You're bringing it in, and then you're using the community of Upland as a marketplace to buy outside of Upland digital goods. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So the idea is really so we will not buy parcels back as Upland, right? All of the purchases and, you know, supply and demand, everything happens between the players themselves. So if I purchase now, let's say the New York Stock Exchange, to give you one example, has been sold for $23,000, or which is 23 million Apex, because $1 equals 1,000 Apex in our world. And so this, because the New York Stock Exchange obviously has some interesting, you know, business potential, and some others might buy it from the original first owner. And this you can now do for any digital good in Upland going forward. So when I purchase maybe a nice car, right, maybe I drive it in quotation mark virtually for 1 year, and then I decide to sell it to another player, and I sell it maybe a little bit cheaper than I bought it, because I've used it obviously. And then I can find a secondary purchaser, market purchaser.
And got it. And then finally, that last connect piece where you're having people be able to meet within Upland and kind of talk and potentially transact, is that the main way that you hope to engage and retain players within Upland?
Yeah, I mean, right now we already have a very, very engaged in community on Discord, mainly on Discord, where they're creating also additional all sorts of content, like of course videos, blogs, rap song, podcasts, and so on. And we want to capture that. So if you are somehow, let's say when we take the virtual coffee shop and you're maybe a video producer, maybe you want to invite some people to come there, and people have then the reason not to watch the video on YouTube, but they come to your place. And we have to see how that evolves. Right now, there's an app which is called Clubhouse, which is super successful, where people just meet on audio basis, and we have very similar ideas with different ways of communication. Maybe some of the meetings will be in video, some will be just on text, some will be in audio. So that's what drives people always coming back to the app. But the app, in order to retain users, it's not this. Is one big component is this social component, which I just mentioned, but there's also all this game loops and game engagement points we have. So it's just fun to be there and to do treasure hunts against other players and to participate in a live event. So that drives people all the time back. And of course, when you are putting money or when you're operating a business, right, you always want to check in, just like in real life, how is my business doing? And this is also something which is, of course, naturally will drive people back into the app.
So I thought we can next talk about the metaverse. And it seems like you have a very interesting product in the sense that you're kind of mixing elements of blockchain and metaverse. And so could you speak to, I mean, we already see some elements of metaverse in terms of land and, kind of user-generated content and things of that nature. But could you, maybe let's start with what do you think, what is your definition of a metaverse?
Yeah, there's a lot of definitions, and what's really the right definition? For me, it's super simple. For me, it's a parallel world where I take another or maybe the same identity. So, and we have lots of people might have seen the movie Ready Player One, and that's perfectly a metaverse. But a metaverse is also when you play Fortnite, for instance, right? It's also a metaverse as such. However, the main differentiator of a blockchain metaverse is that you have this component of selling goods and transferring value between stakeholders or between players. That's what is new for blockchain metaverses.
Right. And so within Upland, could you talk about that in terms of, how do you describe Upland's version of the metaverse? And I guess we can see the blockchain elements of it, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit in terms of what your plans for building out the metaverse in Upland are.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe to add on the previous explanations, I think metaverse is also some kind of a mindset. So you go in there, right? And because most of the people associate metaverse with some kind of virtual reality experience and so on, which is probably true, but we all know that virtual reality is still a bit further out, or you have maybe some 3D environment and so on. So, but first of all, it's something where you go in, you start thinking, you start strategizing, when you play the game or when you meet people and all this kind of things. So it's something which takes part of your mind. So that's one thing of the metaverse. In terms of specifically of Upland, that's just exactly the way it is right now. Now, because we are based on the real world, now you can purchase when you purchase your parcel, now you put a building on it, and then people can walk through the street, see the buildings from outside, and then eventually can go into those buildings, and then there's something in there, either it's a gallery or what have you, right, or a coffee shop and so on, and then you can move around in those places. And that's what the metaverse makes it so compelling, because you're taking yourself somewhere else, but in Upland's case, it's somehow still connected to the real world, because I clearly see also once the whole pandemic and things are over, we hopefully go back to normal life and technology advances. When I've heard that those augmented reality glasses will come out one day, right? So I clearly see also that an Upland user maybe one day carries his augmented reality glasses, walks through a street in his city, and then sees a coffee shop, but he sees maybe something else what's there in real life, and can do maybe something else what he could do in real life. So he has additional possibilities because of that. And that's part of the metaverse. It's not completely an isolated, immersive experience. It can be, in Upland's case, really blend with the real world.
My last question is really around the potential evolution of the metaverse. And, you mentioned Ready Player One, for example, but in terms of when you think about the Upland metaverse, how do you view the Upland metaverse in, say, 5 years, in 20 years? How close do we get to Ready Player One? Or what is your eventual sort of end game in terms of the evolution of Upland's metaverse?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I think in 5 years, we always have to see how technology also evolves in a certain way, right? But when we can pursue our vision, and that's a lot of people will play or will be in the Upland metaverse, I see that in 5 years, many people will be there and spend some of their time there. So instead of being maybe on a social network, they will be in Upland, meeting their friends in a coffee shop, or new people, who have like-minded interests, and do some stuff there and participate in some local events and what have you. So that's something, but it's still, let's say, it's still clear that you are somehow in that, that, let's say, artificial, environment for such. You go there and so on. In 20 years, however, when technology has advanced, I see clearly that this is going to be completely blurred. So it's not clear sometimes, and it might be a little bit abstract. Are you now in the real world, or are you in the Upland metaverse? Where are you right now, in a certain sense? Because somehow it's just mixed up, and you're doing different things which are just it will feel natural that you navigate yourself through those different types of worlds when I see the way I see it.
Got it. Okay. Well, Dirk, I want to thank you very much for your time. So Dirk, for the audience, please do check out Upland. I think it's a very, very exciting product, and definitely, you're at the forefront of all these new changes in technology, blockchain and metaverse and things of that nature. So I think it's very interesting. But maybe Dirk, if you have a last message for our audience, and if folks are interested in contacting you or checking out Upland, where should they go?
Yeah, you see that actually here in my back. I get confused. No, that's no again. So yeah, you see our internet. It's upland.me. You can follow us on Twitter or join us on Discord. So it's really, that's very easy, and you can also, of course, find us in the app in the iOS store, Google Play Store. So yeah, no, join Upland, join the community. It's a great community. It's not all about playing. It's about socializing with others, and I think you will enjoy the time when you're there.
All right, great. Well, Dirk, thank you again for your time, and that's it. Thanks, everybody.